In this video, I'm going to address a couple of issues that you might encounter while you're tuning. There are going to be four main issues that I address in this video. They are going to be stuck pegs, meaning if your tuning pegs just won't turn and you just can't get them to budge. Then we have fine tuners that are just screwed in far too much to be able to go back and forth, so we want to be able to loosen those and then adjust with the pegs. That's something else we'll talk about. We're also going to talk about what happens if your peg is loose and you can't get it to stay. And also the last thing is going to be what happens when you tune one string and it makes the other strings go out of tune. So those are four main issues I'm going to talk about, and we'll go ahead and get started now. Number one issue that I'm going to address is stuck pegs. So when people are trying to tune their instrument and they're doing everything right and they hear the reference pitch and they've got their hand counterweight and they're ready to try to adjust that peg, what will sometimes happen is the peg won't move at all. It just won't budge, and you're trying and you just can't get it. At that point, you should stop immediately. The thing you want to do with a stuck peg is not continue trying to turn it and make it tighter. The first thing you want to do is loosen it, turn it toward you and pull it out a bit and loosen it, and that's the first thing to do. From a nice loose pulled out peg, it's much easier to turn that pitch up instead of taking a stuck peg and trying to force it, which you should never do. For issue number two, we're going to see a fine tuner that's actually all the way in. You can see that I have no way of making that any tighter because it's literally all the way in compared to the others. So if I make an adjustment with my tuning pegs, I won't be able to adjust here. The way to fix that is to loosen this first. You're going to make the pitch go out of tune, of course, but what you want to do is loosen that that fine tuner that's all the way screwed in. And now what we'll do is we'll adjust the pitch with the peg, get it close, and then we have a little bit of room to work with now. So again, for a fine tuner that's all the way in, you want to unscrew that first, adjust the pitch with the peg, and then adjust with the fine tuner. Number three that you might encounter is a loose peg, something where you turn the peg and then you let it go and it just loosens up on you. So there's two ways that I would recommend doing this. One is just to make sure that you counterweight and really twist that peg in, although there are going to be those pegs that just will not stay in no matter what you do. And there's a product that you can use called peg drops. They sell this in music stores. I know Brinley's around the corner sells it because we had talked about stocking this product for students, and you can also get it online probably for about $10. One bottle will last you years, most likely, unless you're using it every day. I've had this bottle for about 2 years, as you can see. It's only about half full. And what you do with this is you actually pull the peg out before you're about to turn it and tune it, and you just put a drop or two of this right on the peg, and then you put it into the box and you twist it and it will stick. And it's a great fix for instruments that just don't stay in tune and have a peg that always slips. This last thing is tension distribution. This is a fancy way of talking about how if you have an in-tune string and an in-tune string and an in-tune string, and you have to tune the one in the middle because it's floppy and not in tune, what's going to happen to the other strings? If they're in tune already, tuning this string is going to make all those other strings out of tune. I always tell my students why this happens. Well, if you had 4 people holding a big heavy table, just imagine that, big heavy table, 4 people, and then one of you walks away, that table's immediately heavier for the other 3 people. And that's what happens with your strings. So we're gonna listen to how the A string on this viola is in tune. The G string is in tune. And the C. But the D is not. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what we normally do when we tune. We're going to bring that D up to tune. I'm going to twist it carefully while listening. Here's my pitch again. I got it right up to the pitch. I hold my angle, counterweight, twist in, check it. It's a little high, bring it down. So now my D is in tune, more or less. But what happened to my A? Let's see. Now that is actually flat. So my A string on this viola was in tune before, but when I tuned up the D right next to it, it made the A go flat. And why? Because the D is now holding onto that table, and A, it's not as heavy for A, so A has got a difference in tension. So let's go ahead and tune A now. And then check D, better, G. G went out because it's also next to D. And then C. Even C went a little out there. So the point there is that you might have 3 in-tune strings and 1 out-of-tune string, but when you tune that one string, it's gonna make everybody else go a little out of tune. What I usually like to do is not start in the middle of the strings when I'm tuning. That's one of the reasons we start with high strings and go this way, because they don't affect each other as much. So just something to keep in mind if you're getting frustrated tuning, and little by little as you practice, it'll get easier. Practice these things, continue practicing tuning, and hopefully this video addressed a couple of issues that you might encounter. If there's anything else, email me and I'll get back to you right away.